Hey, everybody, welcome to Tell Me More. As you all remember from this past Sunday, we had our annual parish celebration, which took place in the church and which was recorded and live streamed, and which will be or has already been distributed this week via YouTube and Facebook. And so, since we didn't have time to do a Tell Me More because our activities between services was doing the annual celebration, in which we received some really incredible information and great successes about what we've accomplished at Redeemer this past year. I'm going to record Tell Me More this way so we could still have Tell Me More even though it wasn't live at the parish this week. So obviously I took a track with my sermon this week that focused on the fame of Jesus spreading throughout the Galilee, starting in Capernaum. Whenever I'm preparing for a sermon or writing a sermon, I always try to find a theme or a challenge. Often, if there's a hard statement of Jesus, I like to dig into that because I feel like if we don't dig into those things, you all go home wondering what those hard statements meant without an explanation. And so, as I was reading through the account today, I had a couple of different uh, versions of this sermon that could have come out. One was really a lot about what synagogues outside of the temple in the ancient Near East looked like, what a synagogue's setup was. But I really hunkered in and clicked down and tuned in to Jesus' fame began to spread. Jesus was becoming famous because of what he did in Capernaum. And of course, we know that eventually um, this fame is the cause of the crucifixion and the want to kill Jesus, and the Romans allowing that to happen because they were afraid of the fame that was spreading. And so I'm going to focus the first half of Tell Me More on Capernaum and the synagogue and what that looked like and what normalcy was and how Jesus completely broke that normalcy in that synagogue. And I'm going to, the second part, reflect a little more on how we can share and make Jesus famous. And in that, I'm going to try, if you all would join me, I'm going to try to kick off a new initiative at Redeemer that I will name at the end of this video, something that I think we could all buy into and I'll be really excited about. So, Capernaum was a fishing town, and some estimate that its population was about 1,500 people. And perhaps that's 3 times the size of Nazareth. So you have two things going on here, right? Jesus is leaving his town of Nazareth, where he grew up, to go to the Galilean region to call followers and to begin his ministry. Remember later on in the gospel when Jesus is in Nazareth and he says a prophet has no power in his hometown. So he needs to leave home to start his ministry, for people to hear him for who he is and not who they perceive him to be. So he goes to Capernaum. Archaeologists have actually found the synagogue. I mentioned in my sermon that I sat in that synagogue. It really isn't the exact synagogue. It's above the exact synagogue. So archaeologists have found the synagogue beneath the synagogue I sat in, which was later constructed on the same site. And Jewish people who were too far away from the temple to worship gathered in synagogues on the Sabbath to pray and to study Scripture. Most synagogues were community centers and places of prayer and study. Now, when visiting teachers were present, synagogue leaders would invite them to lecture, especially on the Sabbath. To mention a little bit more about the Capernaum synagogue, it was built on basalt blocks, and it was less ornate than later synagogues that are found by archaeologists. Synagogue services on the Sabbath were conducted by priests, or what we would call lay leaders. So um, think about a prayer service being led by a non-ordained person with a reflection on the scripture that was read. And so those lay people were also most skilled in scriptures, and they contributed their share when the Old Testament was to be expounded on, or for them, scripture, not the Old Testament. Many local teachers were village scribes who also wrote down and interpreted legal documents for their village. Some of them taught children the Bible. Most teachers would try to expound the law, normally from their scripture reading, by explaining the proper way to translate and apply, or by appealing their traditions. Jesus went a bit further here than this kind of exposition. Now, this explains why people were so excited to see someone teach with authority. Most of the leaders in synagogues, such as this one, would have only been reflecting on reading what past teachers have said. So it would be as if someone today would stand up and read a section of the Gospel according to Mark, and then go find what Augustine said about it, go find what Rowan Williams said about it, go find what Aquinas said on it, and read what Aquinas, how those people exposed the scriptures, and then just kind of left it there with some more basic Q&A or exposition if possible. So they didn't speak on their own authority. Their authority came from others who had already done the work, because they were reliant on past teachers for the lessons they were delivering. That, plus the exorcism of the possessed man, would cause Jesus' reputation to become famous. Part of this is because Galilee's villages were close together, and close connections among them would allow word to spread rapidly. Now, to go a little bit deeper into the exorcism that we see here. People often expected spirits to display their departure dramatically, and so you hear with a shriek or with convulsions, the spirit comes out of the man. People often tried to expel, so people who weren't Jesus, tried to expel demons through incantations or strong orders. It was thought to be a very complicated thing to do an exorcism. I think it probably still is. However, Jesus expels the demon just with a sentence. And that also was extraordinary and invited amazement. So what you see here with Jesus in the synagogue teaching is something that's totally out of the ordinary for the people who are listening, for the people who are in attendance. Sure, there's a guest preacher, so they're kind of excited to see that. But for that guest preacher to then preach with authority that they never heard before, as if he was the author of the scriptures himself, and then to expel a demon with such ease and without it being difficult or messy, is something they had never seen before. And so his fame spreads. And that brings us to really one of the main points of my sermon, was Jesus' fame spreading, and how can we spread the fame, make Jesus famous? I've attended a number of Episcopal churches. I grew up in an Episcopal church my whole life. It was an Episcopal church that was extremely healthy and really did well for a long time, and then it went through an unhealthy stage. And I attended churches, numerous churches, while I was in seminary in Wisconsin, to see what different churches were like after having been at Redeemer for 5 years. And then I've been back at Redeemer. But I also see churches and hear churches and watch churches to see what other people are doing. One of the things that I've experienced, especially in churches that were not doing so well, is they want more members. Every church wants more members. How do you go about that? Well, a number of the churches that I attended would have one Sunday per month that they had an invite a friend to church Sunday. And every time I saw a church do it, what I saw was um, a miserable failure. People not doing it, people uncomfortable to invite someone to church. It's not always easy. Not all of us are extroverts that want to invite everyone to come to church with us. So why? Why was it so uncomfortable in those churches? I have not seen the same thing at Redeemer. I see a lot of you invite folks to church to come and give it a try. Especially when I was working in youth ministry, I saw a lot of people inviting, you have to come to Redeemer. The youth ministry is so great, and that's still true today. It's extra true today. And so when we invite someone to something, anything, whether it's church or our house or a restaurant, an ice cream parlor, a park, the thing that we invite them to really has to be interesting or exciting, or the person has to have an interest in it. So Redeemer is a really special place. It's a really special parish, as you all know. We have a ton of exciting reasons to invite people to enter into community at Redeemer, to invite folks who are Christians or who aren't. Remember, our call, our mission, is to make new Christians, to make all Christians new. So some of the reasons to invite folks to Redeemer. We've had an historically phenomenal youth and children's ministry. Think about all the things that we've done with our youth group, all the things that we do with our youth group, all the events and trips that they can go on in the summer, weekly youth group meetings, Logos when it returns, which it will soon, other children's activities like Just Do It, which we're going to be doing this Lent, which is one of the most exciting and really fun things that we put together, and thank God for Jackie Bodecker who puts that all together. It's a lot of hard work, and all the volunteers that she gets to come and meet and talk with the kids. Vacation Bible School, one of the greatest I've ever seen in my life. The greatest I've ever seen in my life here at Redeemer. There's a lot of reasons to invite people to come to Redeemer because of our youth and children's programs. We have one of the finest music programs you can find anywhere. The legacy that Ann Stevenson Moe has left at Redeemer is that we have fine art in the form of music. And Sam Nelson will continue that legacy at Redeemer. I've invited people to come to Redeemer. Well, my barber is one person who I invited, and she and her husband come. We're coming a lot more before COVID hit, but they're being more careful now, like a lot of you are. And the music, just the hymns, but on top of all that, the other things the choir does, blows people away. Great music at Redeemer. Redeemer gives generously to our community. Most of you know the kind of commitment Redeemer has to the Sarasota area and beyond, and how our mission and outreach program enables or helps to enable multiple ministries in the Sarasota area and beyond, how our youth are involved with mission work, how our adults are involved with mission work, both of them in the Dominican Republic. The fact that we give away hundreds of thousands of dollars every year. We give away what most churches would like to have as their budget to help people in our community. It's a reason to invite people to Redeemer. One of the really cool things about Redeemer is that we are a diverse community that gets along with each other extremely well. You could find every opinion under the sun at Church of the Redeemer, and you could find multiple people with every opinion under the sun at Church of the Redeemer. Yet, we come together weekly, oftentimes multiple times per week. We worship God together. We love each other. We respect each other. And we treat each other with dignity and compassion. We model what the world is crying out for. What our civilization is crying out for happens at Redeemer every time we come together. That's a reason to invite someone to church. We have robust formation programs, which are both clergy-led and led by lay people who are able and willing to teach. We don't We're not a top-down Father says so organization. We are a church that empowers our laity to be great leaders, both in the community, both by leading us with the skills that folks have, and by enabling our lay people like um, Michelle Van Loon's a good example, Michael Hartenstein's a good example, to teach classes and to take that teaching platform, kind of like those lay leaders in the synagogues did. You're not going to get the same old, same old. We try to offer such a wide variety of formation that if you're not interested in this one, you're going to be interested in the next one. Jane Thompson is another great example of an amazing lay leader who leads Bible studies every single week, and they're magnificent. That's another reason to invite someone to Redeemer. There are countless places for people to take part in ministry, to take their place, as we used to say at Redeemer. There's acolytes, lay readers, altar guild, just to name a few of places where if you have a skill and you want to take part in what's going on at Redeemer, you can. Now, all of this is to say that in today's world, it is so much easier to share what you love about your parish. It's easier. We need to start sharing what we love at Redeemer. It's easy to do. I know all of you watching right now can do it because I see all the ridiculous memes that you all share on Facebook on a regular basis, and none of them have anything to do with Redeemer. So here's the new initiative that we're calling for our parishioners, all of our parishioners, to do. Stop sharing all the political stuff. Stop sharing memes that cut people down. Stop sharing all that snarky stuff that we so often share. Stop sharing those pictures that say, share if you love Jesus, or share if you don't want this kitten to cry, or all those ridiculous things that I'm seeing people share all the time. You don't know who made them. You don't know the author of those things. You can't trust them. Start sharing the sermons that the priests at Redeemer preach. Start sharing the classes that you've enjoyed and you think others should see. Start sharing the music that our musicians work so hard to put out. Anything that Redeemer does, share. Share it on your Instagram, share it on your Facebook, share it through emails to friends. Hey, I thought you'd be really interested in listening to this class. Hey, I thought you'd be really interested in listening to this sermon. Share what your church is doing. It's never been easier. It has never been easier to share what's happening at your parish that you love than it is right now. So I want you all to think about when you share something, instead of sharing that thing that makes you feel good because maybe it'll make the political person you disagree with cringe or whatever, before you comment on someone's post to argue with them, think about something that your church did this week and share it. We started this online ministry to battle the aloneness and the separation from the parish proper that we were all feeling in lockdown. This ministry doesn't end when the lockdown ends. This ministry doesn't end when the pandemic ends. We have built something that will last. The whole purpose of this online ministry was to last and to become the best and easiest way for all of you to share what's happening at your beloved parish. When you see the sermon from last Sunday posted, when you see the classes, Tell Me More, the rector's class, Wednesday night classes posted, if you like them, if you enjoy them, If you took part in them, share them so that your friends can see what Redeemer's doing. Father Wilson wants to grow by 3,000 members. We can do it. And our online ministry is one of the ways, one of the best ways to accomplish that and to make it happen. So the new campaign at Redeemer, if you care, share. God bless you all. Have a great night.